This is insane.
The tent literally flew about 35 feet in the air.
On August 7th, 2023, we experienced one of the most powerful windstorms our area has seen in years, later confirmed to be a tornado. It damaged a large portion of our landscape, our house, and several other items of value. This video tells the story of our first tornado strike and how we got back up from it.
So this afternoon we checked the weather and it said there was going to be some severe storms, maybe a tornado warning. Didn't think a whole lot of it. And we got all of our rock woolen that was outside. We put all that inside, made sure that was good. Beautiful hot weather. All of a sudden, about an hour ago, I mean, the skies turned dark, looked like a typical thunderstorm, but we got hit by a legitimate tornado. I just stood out this front door window. I watched an entire skid of PVC sheet fly off here. Here's one of them. Followed by the tent that was around our skid steer. There that is over there. I'm just opening this up real quick. This is what's going on, right? I mean, look at the debris. We just lost so many trees. They just snapped. They're completely snapped off. That was a beautiful tree. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. Didn't have the RV awning fully locked up. That was stupid. That's completely destroyed now. There's just debris everywhere. No more tent around the skid steer, as you can see, and our nice private tree line that was hiding us from the giant cornfield, yeah, that's destroyed. They're all gone. Wow. This is frightening. Power's out, obviously. We're going to have a serious mess on our hands after this. I'm so worried that one of these trees is going to come down right on that camper. I'm really concerned. They're literally bending in half. It looks tame right now, but these things were like bent in half. Well, less than 2 hours later, the storm has blown through. We're able to walk outside now. Here's some of the aftermath. You could not see the sky through there before. That was fully wooded. The worst of this all is my favorite tree on this property, the thing with the black bag on the bottom, completely snapped off. That thing, well, you can kind of see partial what it was. It was so tall. That was a gorgeous tree. Probably about half the trees along our southern woods line are gone, just laying here. As they were taken down, the wind was literally shredding the leaves, and it literally looks like someone came at the house with a paintball gun of some sort. They're all just little bits of shredded leaves. Luckily, I haven't spotted any siding damage yet. I'm gonna clean this.
Yeah, there is.
JK.
Oh.
We just spotted some siding damage. Oh my gosh, yep. Something really heavy and hard hit that. Yeah, looking closer, I actually do see quite a bit of damage on this vinyl. I'm actually really happy we put the vinyl on the southern side now and not hardy, because the vinyl's a lot easier to replace and a lot cheaper. But yeah, as I look up, I can start to tell the difference between the spattered leaves and actual holes in the vinyl. That's just great. This vinyl siding is like less than a month old, I want to say. I don't even know how to clean that up there. That is outrageous that there's that much leaf debris up underneath that soffit. Like, I don't even think the hose will reach there, especially in this corner. It was just collecting in there, I guess. All right, this is an interesting piece of damage here. It pulled the freaking wires out of the junction box. Oh my gosh. It yanked the wires so hard that it pulled this out. Holy smokes, how does that even happen? And it did it down here too. Okay, I'm glad I shut the breaker on that mini split off. I've inspected the hardy pretty closely and it doesn't look like there's any major damage. These all do look like little leaf remnants. I'll only know when I start washing them all off. If one of these doesn't come off, then I'm gonna know there's an issue. The north side of the house actually is basically good. A little bit of leaf debris, but overall the wind was coming from the south. Oh look, and the sun's out now. Beautiful, that's just great. PVC sheets just shattered. Those are $100 each, nice. Harbor Freight tent, has a $250 tent, that's gone. But more importantly, all these damn trees. I am so bummed. You could not see the sunlight there earlier today. That was just total nice dense forest. It appears the wind just ripped right through this corridor. Like, that was fully wooded and it is just wide open now. And here's the driveway. Not gonna be getting a truck down there anytime soon. Virtually half the trees going along the driveway are all snapped off. This one beautiful tree, which we purposely left when we were grading the driveway because it looked really nice, that's gone. A lot of cleanup work to do just to even get a vehicle in here anymore. Just snapped this guy right off. That's a big boy. Glad it wasn't any closer to the house. Just found this in the yard. I can tell you for sure that this was not on this property before. This is a piece of someone else's barn roof. I think it might be the neighbor, like at least a half mile down the road.
That suspicion was confirmed once I got the drone up in the air. There was a lot more roofing material this direction from a neighboring farm, and it was all throughout this field. It seems the storm moved from that direction this way, not only because of the roofing material, but the corner of this cornfield was totally blown down, and it was only this corner. You can even see a little bit of swirling pattern in the corn as well. The power and tree removal company certainly didn't waste any time getting to work. We lost power Monday at about 5 p.m. and unfortunately, because of how rural we are, we didn't regain it until about Friday at noon. It was reported there was about 12 to 15,000 people out of power in our area. Apparently these storms were serious enough that it even got its own Wikipedia page.
All right, we found the first car damage. Taillight's out.
I mean, if that's the worst thing, then that's okay.
That's not the worst thing.
What do you see?
Look at the dent.
This?
Yep. Yep.
The wind picked up this top pallet off the stack about 20 feet away from the car and threw it into the car. Between the pallet and this big branch, every left side panel had body damage to it, which was over $5,000 to repair. My utility trailer got a broken taillight as well.
Literally a leaf wedged inside the broken taillight. You're kidding me. The mighty Nissan seems to have survived somewhat unscathed. Any of these dents, I believe, were already here, but it's hard to say because it was pretty dented up to start with. All right, this one is my fault. This support got ripped out of the roof. It should be anchored in there. It's not. The last 4 inches or so, this is torn. This awning had a habit of collecting water and then it dumps it right over top this window, which leaks like crazy when it rains really hard. So what I've been doing is just leaving the awning like 2 or 3 inches out so the water collects and runs away from the window. I did that for this storm thinking it was gonna be no different. And yeah, the tornado ripped the thing completely open. I'm gonna have to probably figure out how to either fix or replace this awning, which is a shame because they're not very cheap. And then there's this softball size broken glass in the RV. That's gonna have to get immediate attention. I'm really not even sure how to replace a window like that, but I guess it's never too late to learn. Overall, it's just looking a lot more open around here. Gonna have to get used to that. Cleanup day 1 starts today. If we want to get in and out of this driveway, we're gonna need to do something about this. And of course, my big chainsaw is at my mom's house at the farmhouse. So I've compiled my little DeWalt and all the batteries I could find. We still don't have power, so I only have as many batteries as I have. And I'm gonna do what I can here. Luckily, my good friend Zach is on the way. He lives nearby and he's got his big gas chainsaw that I think we can get this mess cleaned up with for the most part. I mean, not in general, but at least get the driveway cleared. So only thing you can do is start. Just kidding, we're all out of chainsaw oil. So I'm gonna be waiting on Zach to clean up this driveway. In the meantime, we're gonna start just picking up the massive amount of branches and brush in the front yard and piling it into places where we could do burn piles. This is reminiscent of when we were cleaning up after logging. It was like the same work order, except we didn't want any of these trees to come down. Well, we piled up that much and we decided we're gonna take a break and venture back here into the woods a little bit to check out some of the damage up close. This root ball is gigantic, probably 8 foot in diameter. And it, of course, dug a hole next to my nice little rock pile. Half my rock pile fell into the hole. Those were from when we cleaned up, and I was hoping to use them for landscape features someday. Not gonna be able to use those though. This thing was a monster. That's just such a shame. And then this one right next to it looks like it just got ripped. Yep, doesn't look like we're getting through this.
Look at all those trees over there.
Oh my gosh.
We gotta check the septic
Look at these guys.
We gotta check the septic. I hope it didn't fall in the septic.
Hopefully not. All right, septic system appears to be okay, thankfully. One minor top down up there, but
Now we have a whole clear view. That's insane.
it's gonna be getting plenty of sunlight now.
It used to be
Oh my
completely
gosh.
wooded in that direction, and now it's not.
I've hiked down to the start of the driveway now. I had to go through the cornfield, which half the corn is all topped in half. to get down here because it was so densely wooded in our driveway now. For example, this guy right behind me is blocking the driveway pretty good. So that's gonna be the first order of business. Zach said he's on the way up. Should be coming up the driveway shortly. We're gonna get to work with the chainsaw. All right, Zach came with a saw. We worked pretty hard for a couple hours and we got it clear enough to barely fit my Frontier under some of these low-hanging trees down here. It's going to be a huge project to try to get some of these trees down because they're suspended up in the air 20, 30 foot, basically hanging on other trees that are all split in half, and there's some very precarious situations down there. I think we might have to get our bucket truck tree guy in to take care of some of this just because it's so tall. I'm not really sure if I can get any of that from the ground, even pulling on it with the skid steer. We also went to my mom's house today to check out damage there. It definitely was a less severe storm, but 2 pine trees got the tops broken off of them, and our little pig house slash garden shed that's right next to Elena's garden got about 1/4 of the roof ripped off. Maybe not 1/4, but a good solid chunk out of the one corner of it came off. So it kind of needed a new roof anyway. Maybe that's a good impetus to make that happen, hopefully under insurance dollars. But overall, that farm did not take nearly as big of a hit as it did here. I haven't seen much storm damage that's as bad as we got here. Even doing a quick lap, we had to go get some diesel and some other things. We found the power poles that are down, and that's the reason we still don't have power. So hopefully in the next day or two that can get resolved. I also picked up some of the shattered pieces of PVC that came out of the woods. Oh, somewhere around over there is where they got thrown, all the way over there. And I think the rest of the evening we're gonna try to work on this tent mess, pulling that out of the woods and seeing if it's at all salvageable. I'm gonna guess not, but we'll check that out too. This looks oddly similar to when we were cleaning up after logging, when there was nothing at all here, except lots of downed treetops and brush. So we're back at it. What was that, 2 years ago now? My gosh.
Are you just gonna watch?
All right, where to even begin this? Dump out the 20 gallons of water that's stored in it. Oh my gosh, this thing is just mangled. Ugh.
Thankfully, Elena's dad gifted us his generator last year, and that helped charge our batteries and keep the RV powered up, but unfortunately it didn't have 240 volt power to run our well pump, so we had no running water. That was by far the worst part of not having power for this week.
Yep, that box is gonna need to replace. Rip that disconnect right off its mounts. Just flopping around in there now. It like bent the little terminal block up and everything. I'll need to strip all these wires back too. The abrasion just took all the coatings off the wire. So at a minimum, I'll need a new box to replace the innards of that guy, and I'm gonna make that a right angle connector while I'm at it, because I should have done that from the first place like the other one is. And I did take this one out. I took this panel off. Thankfully, I didn't put any ring terminals or anything on those lines. They're just a clamp under a screw terminal, so it just ripped the lines out of the clamp. Didn't cause any damage to the unit itself, thank goodness. So I'll just be able to basically reclamp those in. I'm gonna have to strip more wire out of here again because the jacketing got damaged as it got pulled through the sharp metal edge there. I've already been in contact with customer service on getting a quote on this new top panel too, because it's now got this big old nice brown dent in the top of it, thanks to that. Probably the same stick that got thrown into that. The side walls of the tent were actually in pretty good shape, so we can reuse those as tarps. It wasn't too bad. The end walls, one of them is pretty sad looking. This one here, it's definitely seen better days, but what we're thinking is we might be able to utilize, oh, a little fashion statement there. Little fashion statement. But to be honest with you, the tubes actually survived pretty well. There wasn't really any, there's a couple dents I think I saw in one, but mainly what failed here was the connectors, like broken welds, broken weld. That one, that's a corner, that got pretty bent up. But maybe I'm thinking if I can somehow find the OEM of this tent to reorder a few of these connectors. It's not unsalvageable, I would say. These got real bent up too. These were the ones holding the bottom rail together. These look like complete potato chips. They seem fairly inexpensive and maybe could be replaced. So we're thinking maybe we could use this as like a greenhouse at some point. You know, try to reassemble it the best we can. and then put a plastic sheet on it to be sort of a temporary greenhouse until we can get something nice and permanent built. The insurance adjuster just came by this morning. I had to open up the driveway a little bit more because there was still some branches hanging down, but he made it through. He came all the way from Illinois to assess all this damage because when there's big storms, obviously the insurance companies get a ton of claims in the same area. So he said he had like 30 inspections to do out here, and we were the very first one. So he showed up at like 7 in the morning. He was out of here by 8. We used my drone to take photos of the roof. Luckily, the roof only has that one little bit of damage on the one trim, and then the fascia's dented in a couple places. But I showed him all the other damage, including the remnants of the tent. And he thinks that it can all be covered under personal property, including the RV, because it doesn't have a motor. It's not a motorized vehicle. But unfortunately, none of the trees are covered because they're only covered if they hit the house. Apparently that's a pretty common insurance thing. Otherwise people would be claiming trees left and right, and this would be a gigantic tree cleanup job. So thankfully, we're used to this from the logging process and cleaning up the tops. It feels very similar to that. But we'll see what they come back with the report for the claim and what they might be willing to offer. This is just a good show of why you need insurance, and you just never know when something's gonna happen. I'm really happy I had this. I actually had 2 policies, one for builder's risk, one for personal property. No one's ever expecting something like this major storm to come through, especially in Pennsylvania, but it is what it is, and that's why insurance exists. Oh, and here's a great story time. I went to go start my chainsaw, my Echo 620, to get some of this cleaned up, and I mixed a whole freshening of gas because it had been sitting through the winter, put it in there, and I could not get this thing started at all. It was just not starting. It was blowing liquid fuel out the exhaust. What the heck? I worked on this for like 2 hours. I took the carb apart, and then I finally gave up, and I texted my buddy Tony, who does small gas engine stuff. He's a professional mechanic and works on chainsaws specifically on the side. Took it over to him. We started taking it apart. He's like, this smells like diesel fuel. I was like, no, it doesn't. No, it does not smell like diesel. He's like, no, dude, you put diesel in the saw. Turns out that at some point I must have put diesel in a red gas can. I don't know how. I've done this before, admittedly, when I didn't have enough volume for what I needed to fill up, but I guess that red gas can, that's what I took from when I mixed my fresh 1 gallon of my fresh 1 gallon of gas. And yeah, I mixed oil with diesel and then put it in my chainsaw. The positive thing about this is diesel is highly lubricating and it shouldn't hurt the saw, but now I have to try to work all this diesel out of the tank. I took the car back apart, rebuilt it, and put more gas in it. The saw still is not running right. It's running, but it seems to be running kind of lean. It won't stay running without some throttle. So hopefully I can work all that bad fuel out of the system, and that's my issue. So the garage entrance has been turned into a little bit of a chainsaw shop, and luckily in a pinch I can still use my little DeWalt 12-inch guy and then the pole saw. The pole saw is really handy actually for cutting stuff just that's already down on the ground, just because some of the limbs are 6-8 foot off the ground even when they're laid down. So this thing has been awesome just for delimbing stuff that's already down. Making some more headway this morning, cleaning up the tops. Elena, I was able to get out here helping, and of course, in typical fashion, she is trying to save as much as possible. She wants to make some, what do you call them? Wait, wattle beds. Here's a picture of that on the screen. We'll use the tops to kind of skinny down to just thin, long sticks, weave them in between some stakes that we're also taking from the tops, and then anything that's like truly too twisted or unusable, we're just putting in this big bonfire we started over here. And then the big logs, I am just saving in this pile here. We'll add those to our firewood piles that we have scattered around. I think there's 5 of them. Some of these are pretty decent milling logs, actually. We want to get a sawmill eventually, but that would be a nice straight group of 2x4s or something like that. And this is all hardwood lumber, which would be really nice to build some outdoor stuff with that's not going to rot. So the strategy is we're just pulling little bits of tops out. Elena's giving them the evaluation, telling me what to chop off and what not to. And then we are piling them up, stakes there, long skinny tops there, and then in the wheelbarrow she's putting like the little tiny offcuts, I guess, to try to fill the beds eventually with those. That's the hugelkultur method, to fill beds with a bunch of just like random sticks and leaves to take up space, and then eventually it'll decompose.
As always, the skid steer and grapple was a huge help in cleaning up. I consider this piece of equipment an absolute necessity if you own any sort of acreage, especially if it's wooded.
The pole saw has been huge help, as well as my big saw, in getting this giant, scary hanging tree at least away from the driveway a bit. But one thing I wanted to point out was this right here. This is implanted in 12 inches of stone. That is a probably 6-inch diameter limb, and it just dug itself a hole right into the driveway. That thing must have come down with so much force. That is insane. I might need to pull this out with the skid steer. Holy smokes. That's got to be 8 inches into the stone. Gosh dang. That must have been a foot into the dang driveway. That is crazy. This is the line where the stone stopped right there. That's more than a foot. It was buried. That's probably 1.5 feet, 18 inches that the thing was buried into the driveway.
One trip to town later, and we got ourselves a new Harbor Freight tent. We decided to change the location from the middle of the build site on the south side that's fairly exposed to back behind the RV where it's sheltered a little bit more from the trees. We debated on not replacing it at all, but it's the main shelter for the skid steer, which is an expensive piece of equipment, and it's nice to have to keep other things out of the rain that we don't really have the space for in the garage, such as scrap lumber, gas cans, shovels, rakes, other outdoor tools. And it's going to be a while before we have a shed or a barn built to store that kind of stuff permanently on the property. The first tent was going on 2 years old and it was still in pretty good shape, so hopefully we can get a couple years out of this one as well.
Let's do some rehab on some brand new vinyl siding that hasn't even been up like 2 months yet. That's probably the worst of the damage right there. A big old log must have flown in there at like 70 miles an hour. I've never taken vinyl off and had to replace it, so this is a new skill for me, but it's pretty easy from what I've gathered and what I've kind of figured out. I did do the first couple pieces on the other side real quick. They just had some real minor damage, but that got me warmed up to what I'm doing here. But actually, even before we started putting this up, I bought this tool right here. This is a vinyl siding removal tool, and it's actually good for installing it back and clipping it back together as well. You can do this with your hands, and I tried a couple pieces with my hands. It's easy to take it off. It's not quite as easy to get it clipped back in. So this thing actually makes it 10 times easier. It's $6. If you're doing any kind of vinyl siding work, I would highly recommend picking that up before you start. So let's pull this piece off. It's almost all the way ripped off already from the storm, and get a new replacement piece in there. The old-fashioned way by hand, just to stick your hand in here, pull this down, and that does work. You can kind of get it started and then run your hand down. But also, just for the sake of demonstration, I'm gonna zip that back in real quick and then use this guy to do the same thing. You can basically just shove it up underneath one of the weep holes, get it clipped under, and same thing, you can use that to pull it out, and then you run this along and it unclips the whole thing. Super quick, super easy. And like I said, it works even a lot better when you're trying to put it back in, because typically you're trying to pull this down, get it started at one end, and then just basically tap it until it clips all the way back in. But sometimes that's easier said than done, especially on a 12-foot long piece. Where this guy, as long as you can get it started and get that tool underneath this lip right here, all you do is run it along, and it slaps it right back in there, and it's clipped in. For some reason, siding sort of intimidated me before I started this, and now I realize how insanely simple it is, especially vinyl. Hardy board and rigid board siding does not have this wonderful advantage of being able to clip it and unclip it so easily from the wall. That is definitely something vinyl like really excels in, but you can't have everything, because even though this is easy to work with, it does break pretty easily in storms. This side was already unclipped from the wind, so that was easy. Have to finish getting this broken piece out from underneath the lip here. To expose the fasteners for this piece, I have to unclip the piece above it, which is also going to get replaced because it's damaged. And here's another kind of cool trait of vinyls. I'm not going to have to take that fastener out. I can bend this vinyl so that that slot just slips off the head of that fastener, and I'll be able to reuse it. This one will be even easier because I actually cut the center slot out of this one. But boom, slip it off, and now it's free of that. Just pulling it down, lifting it up, taking that off of there. And just like that, I can remove a piece of siding from the center of the wall. Now I'm just gonna trace this onto a new piece to get the right length, and we'll be good to go. Put it back in. The one positive about replacing brand new siding is that it has not had a chance to change color at all in the sun. Being that this is the south-facing wall, that is certainly something that would have affected this in the long term. The next pieces of vinyl I'm trying to fix are basically out of reach of my step ladders, but I've got a secret weapon on my hands. And that's this, a little work platform that I constructed out of some scrap lumber. It is the opposite of OSHA approved, but I think it will get the job done, and I'm gonna be careful using it. I've also found it makes a pretty nice workbench too, so I'll have to keep that in mind if I'm doing any projects away from the main garage that I need a bench for. I can just bring the skid steer over and use this. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. That one's got a little hole in it. There's just all these little holes. This leaf has been annoying the hell out of me.
What's annoying the hell out of you?
That leaf was stuck up there.
At least you're practicing for when we have to take it all down, which will be a lot easier.
I can't quite reach that very top piece that I have to replace up there, so I'm gonna need my little helper here. Some would say hold my beer and watch this. I don't really want to replace a whole piece. Whoa, that wants to tip back. Adjust my ladder angle. That's better. I'm gonna cut this one right in place.
You okay?
Yep.
Did you fall?
Yep, I'm dead. I died. I used the old piece to measure for a new piece, except I had to add 1.25 inches on one side because this is now going to be the middle of the run. So there needs to be an overlap there. And then the piece on the wall, I have to cut a factory left edge on, so I need to take the hem off the top on the piece that's up on the wall. So that's it for the majority of the wall vinyl repair. Just noticed that that piece isn't snapped in, gosh darn it. But the last two pieces I need to do are way up at the peak, and the skid steer platform is not gonna work for that. There's a hole right up in the shadow over there, and then another hole in the bottom of a piece way up there. You can barely, I don't even know if you can see this on camera. You probably can. But I gotta use my 40-foot ladder for those guys, and I'm just gonna do small piece repairs all the way up there. There's just no way I can maneuver at the top of that ladder. Okay, let's go.
If you've ever set up a 40-foot ladder, you know just how heavy and awkward they are. It's definitely best done with two people, so I always get Elena to help. This example, though, is probably the worst time I've ever had setting a ladder up, and luckily we got it on camera, so enjoy.
I just gotta keep going. Get the pallet. It's fine.
No, it's not fine.
Well, now I have the space to work. Just anchor the base. Now I'm gonna bring it towards the wall, and then we're gonna push it up. Well, I thought we were gonna bring it towards the wall.
Well, you didn't. You just lifted it up saying.
It was too heavy for me to pick up. I hate this ladder, it's so freaking heavy. The easiest way to carry ladders is when they're totally upright, but that was a long way to go from there to there. These huge ones are just a real pain in the butt. Okay, I think we just need to stand it up and then walk it over.
That's what I was saying.
I agree. Okay, I can't. Okay, we gotta push it towards the rock pile then. We need an anchor.
Okay, stop.
Okay, now we have a 20-foot ladder in there. Okay, you get on one side, the key is keeping it upright because if it starts to lean, we're done.
Oh, this is dumb. Can we just hire a lift?
Not for 2 pieces of siding. Oh, don't let it lean too far. Do not let it lean too far. I can't hold it up. This thing's got to weigh over 100 pounds.
Okay.
Okay, this is close enough. Yep.
Graceful landing, not.
Told you. Can you imagine if we started 6 feet back? I would have been replacing another 2 pieces of siding. Holy that was hard. All right, I need my tool belt with a square in it. I cut this. And with those couple last pieces at the very top, siding repairs are finally done. I think that was like 17 pieces that needed to be replaced because of breakage, but it could be worse. If all that was James Hardy, it might have cracked and it might have been even harder to replace. So I'm very thankful that the James Hardy on this side was relatively unscathed, just a couple scratches that I have to come back with a touch-up kit, but no breakage or anything like that. Anyway, now it is time to fix another piece of storm damage, which is this air conditioning unit top lid. It got dented in from presumably a log or something that came flying and hit right at the top of the panel. It did take 2 tries to get an undamaged lid in. Look at this first one. Safe to say that I'm better off keeping the original one on there than using this first one. This thing got all sorts of dented in everywhere. The thing looks like a banana. But luckily the second one, it looks like they packaged a little bit better. There was some more rigid cardboard on the sides and it seemed to come in straight. So this should be really easy. Just a bunch of screws around the perimeter. Got to take them off and put the new one on. It does look like there's some foam that I have to try to transfer. This did not come with the new one. Be shocked if I can get this off in one piece. Oh my gosh. Well, that was a massive pain. Hopefully it was worth it. Might need to re-stick this, but there is some little bits of adhesive that stayed on there. So I might just try to count on that. Perfect. We've now fixed the majority of the damage that has happened. There's a few pieces of roof trim that got dented that I'm not gonna even worry about. And there is one piece of board and batten PVC sheet on the front that I have to pry off and replace, but I'm not gonna bother putting that in this video. This has been long enough. Now we can finally resume our real project, which is finishing this exterior and finishing this house. As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.